Justice Department just doesn't have answers at this point to speak about what DOGE is and what Elon Musk is doing, what role he has, what power he has, and where the people who are working with DOGE at agencies across the government, especially the Treasury Department, where they handle those sensitive payment data, where they're getting their direction from. The question at a hearing yesterday, for about 30 minutes, there was a grilling by a judge of a Justice Department lawyer, and the overarching question was, what is DOGE? And the Justice Department just didn't have answers. At one point, the judge even said to the lawyers in the room, if anybody knows any of the answers here, speak up. Silence. The questions from Judge Kollar-Kotelly: where is Mr. Musk in all of this? Is there an administrator of USDS, that's the U.S. Digital Service, now DOGE, at the present time? Rhetorically, she asked, who's involved? Who's in charge? Who's giving them direction? I would hope by now we would know the structure. The reason this is important is because people are going to court and they're asking judges to take extraordinary action, emergency intervention to lock down data at agencies, like in this case at the Treasury Department. And the judges just don't have enough facts to muster them to do anything right now. So Judge Kollar-Kotelly, in this case, she explained pretty late into this hearing that this matters because if people at the Treasury Department are working with DOGE and taking direction from someone, be it Musk, be it from the White House, that person needs to be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, not just some random person installed in power. And there just are not enough clear answers of the chain of command from Musk to people working with DOGE at agencies like the Treasury Department, even if those people report to the secretary or another top confirmed official. The White House here, they have been no help either. There have been many questions put to them, including by CNN's Caitlin Collins. Here is what Donald Trump said last week when he was asked, what exactly is Elon Musk?
Elon is, to me, a patriot. So, you could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want, but he's a patriot.
Patriot is not an official title, but when asked in court yesterday, the Justice Department said that Elon Musk was, quote, an advisor to the president. That's all we've gotten at this point.
There's a lot of confusion.
Calls for clarity are growing around an email asking federal employees what they did last week. It's now past the response deadline listed on the email. But Elon Musk is doubling down. He says employees will get another chance to submit answers. He says on X, quote, failure to respond a second time will result in termination. That post yesterday comes just hours after seemingly contradictory guidance from the Office of Personnel Management. That's the agency that sent the email. It says responding was voluntary but strongly encouraged. In fact, a number of federal agencies say they don't want their employees to answer.
When is it that somebody doesn't answer the email and they are reprimanded or let go or terminated?
A handful of Republicans are joining those who say the mixed messages are confusing. Senator Shelley Moore Capito says the email wasn't handled well. She says clarification would be good. Senator James Lankford says he wants to know, quote, where did that come from and why did that go out that way?
Just ease up a little bit so we can actually get some really good things done, but make sure it's concisely done without a lot of negativity.
Calls for compassion are on the rise, too. As federal job cuts continue, lawmakers say they're hearing from constituents who are now out of work.
I really wanted to hear their concerns, and let's work together about how can we find you the next job.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
New tonight at 7, Maine Senator Angus King criticizes mass layoffs at the Department of Veterans Affairs after the VA announced plans to cut nearly 1,500 federal employees in upcoming layoffs. King says these layoffs resemble provisions in the controversial Project 2025, a conservative program which backed President Trump and would negatively affect veterans' benefits. In a hearing today, King said these cuts do not put veterans first.
It's hard for me to believe that these cuts, which have been made in the last 20 days, as near as I can tell pretty indiscriminately, are going to change things for the better for the veterans.
King's hearing came before the news that a number of workers at the Togus Veterans Medical Center in Maine were fired as a part of Musk's DOGE cuts. It's not clear how many people have been fired, but some of them are veterans. A union representing Togus workers says all probationary employees were emailed last night that they had been fired for, quote, poor performance, despite having good employment records.
Well, Mary and Megan, the man that we spoke to today had just received stellar performance reviews from his bosses for the work he did. Now, without a job, he wonders if you, the taxpayer, will be impacted by the layoffs. The IRS maintains that if you file an accurate, electronically submitted tax return with a direct deposit, you should see the refund in 21 days. But what happens when you're flagged for manual review? People like Nicholas Jim are the ones sifting through that information. The only issue,
I'd expected I was going to lose my job, but not that way.
He doesn't work for the IRS anymore.
I got a generic email, something along the lines of, you need to show up tomorrow morning, bring all of your things with you, prepare for termination.
A blanket statement sent to probationary employees stating their performance was the problem.
Basically, it stated that the long and short of it was, based on my performance and the guidelines set forth under President Trump's executive order on January 20th, the agency doesn't see a fit for me.
Jim had just started in his role with the IRS last summer, so he was still in that probationary period.
The funniest part of that to me in this whole situation is 2 weeks prior, I had received a formal review from my manager, and in writing, it says I am fully successful in all areas of my job.
His job was to investigate red flag taxpayers.
My expertise was definitely crucial in identifying those key indicators on whether or not a return needed to be identified for further review.
Now, despite assurances from the IRS and the Trump administration, many are wondering if these layoffs are going to prolong your tax return. Jim thinks it will.
A lot of these probationary employees were people that were in charge of answering the phones. So you're going to have those long wait times that we were previously known for at the IRS, and if anything, they're just going to get worse. We talk about, efficiency and cutting costs, and I understand that from a logical perspective, but to do that to your cash cow, for lack of a better term, doesn't make sense in any way to me.
Now, we went to local representatives Claudia Tenney and John Mannion on this. With this story, they have yet to respond. Live in Syracuse tonight, I'm Nicole LaFiandra.
Thanks, Nicole, for staying on this, and we'll continue to track that, as I'm sure that won't be the last story we hear like that.
Yeah, a lot of frustration for those workers, Nicole. Thank you. Happening.
I asked Elon, who are these DOGE people?
She is not a household name.
He said they're super brilliant computer people and they love the country.
But Amy Gleason, at least on paper and for now, is the acting administrator of DOGE, overseeing Elon Musk's personal mission, the massive effort to reshape the federal government. CNN learning that Gleason, for the first time, led a DOGE staff meeting last week with the message, "I am here to move this organization forward," according to a federal worker who asked not to be identified. Gleason did not say what her role or title is when she was addressing staff.
One thing that I've learned about joining the government is you get to work on really cool problems that affect all of Americans.
Gleason has kept a low profile, but has operated within the federal government for years, working for both Republican and Democratic presidents, even recognized by the Obama administration with a Champions of Change Award, work which she spoke about in a 2020 TED Talk.
I'd always worked in the private industry, and I guess I just kind of always assumed that other people would take care of these government big problems. But I found after a year that nobody else is coming. It's up to us to solve these problems.
In the Trump administration, she led the creation of the National COVID Database.
For the first time, every day I can see every new admission across the country, and that has been extraordinarily important.
Working alongside former White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Deborah Birx as part of U.S. Digital Services, or USDS, the agency that has become DOGE, and that she will now lead. A federal worker who has worked with Gleason in the past but is not authorized to speak on the record, describing Gleason as direct and to the point, super smart. Gleason has her roots in healthcare and tech, a former nurse who says she ran into hurdles navigating the healthcare system when her own daughter was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder.
This is one single year of Morgan's medical record. Not having the necessary information causes delays in diagnosis, misdiagnoses, burden on the patient and family, and stress on the doctors and nurses.
She says that fueled her work to build, implement, and streamline electronic medical record technologies. In 2021, Gleason joined Russell Street Ventures, a firm founded by Brad Smith, now also a DOGE advisor, and then was pulled back into USGS, rejoining the federal government in December during the transition to the agency that she is, in theory, leading.
I signed an order creating the Department of Government Efficiency and put a man named Elon Musk in charge.
I'm Kayla Gaskins with the latest Waste Watch from Washington. The Supreme Court siding with the Trump administration in the first legal scuffle over cuts made by the White House. The Trump administration will not have to pay out $2 billion worth of frozen foreign aid for work already completed after an emergency ruling by Chief Justice John Roberts. It's a temporary pause, giving the court time to evaluate the request and does not settle the dispute. On day one, President Trump ordered a 90-day freeze on foreign aid. Lawsuits quickly followed. The court papers reveal the full scale of the Trump cuts to USAID, slashing more than 90% of foreign aid contracts. GOP lawmakers concerned over how the money was being spent.
The Democrat-run USAID should not get to use our federal government, our U.S. taxpayer dollars, as their party piggy bank to push their radical agenda.
Amid the cuts, 1,600 USAID workers were fired. Employees given just 15 minutes to pack up their offices.
It's been quite tragic. I think there's been a lot of a lack of communication. Most people have had their email accounts shut off, so they're getting notices third party from Facebook groups.
Meanwhile, at the Environmental Protection Agency, Administrator Lee Zeldin planning to cut spending by 65%.
It's important that we make the EPA operate as efficiently as possible. There's been about 1,000 people who are departing the agency.
There's also reports Social Security Administration was told to cut staff in half, and more than 110 IRS offices around the country are set to close after 7,000 probationary employees were fired. All federal agencies given a mid-April deadline to suggest relocations of bureaus outside D.C. to more affordable parts of the country. And every government agency instructed by the president to have its own DOGE representative, dubbed a mini Musk, to oversee downsizing efforts. President Trump also said federal workers who did not respond to Elon Musk's email requesting a list of what they did at work are on the firing bubble. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
For some animals at Everglades National Park, it was lunchtime. For this alligator, it was simply time for an afternoon swim. The sights and sounds of wildlife is exactly what people like Deb Farrington come here to see.
To see the different animals, the birds, and the gators, they were kind of cool.
But many are wondering how federal cuts will impact the way they get to experience nature.
It's a little bit concerning. I definitely want to be able to still do it.
You know, we got to make sure that we've got a voice when it comes to the national parks.
The Association of National Park Rangers says federal cuts impacted local parks, like here at the Everglades, with at least 12 people being laid off, 1 at Cypress National Preserve and at least 3 at Biscayne National Park. We waited around 40 minutes to get into Everglades National Park, but a park ranger tells me sometimes it takes an hour due to popularity. With the cuts to staff, the Association of National Park Rangers says it could mean longer wait times, changes to park hours, and even fewer educational visits. Crystal River National Refuge, north of Tampa, lost a quarter of its staff, says Noah Greenwald, Executive Director for Endangered Species for Biological Diversity.
2 of 8 people who make sure that visitors to see the manatees are safe, and also help rescue manatees when they're injured.
He says these staff reductions will come with a cost.
I think we're going to see, species head towards extinction. We're going to see our parks not get the care that they need. We're going to see people put in dangerous situations. We're going to see invasive species not removed.
park-goers saying our national parks need to be maintained and preserved.
We have to probably walk back some things at some point.
But I think there's other ways our country could be spending its money, like here, keeping, our parks going, and the staff too. I mean, that's jobs.
Americans are starting to see a new economic reality under President Donald Trump. Take tariffs, for instance, with Trump confirming yesterday he still plans to impose 25% duties on Mexican and Canadian imports. Tariffs on Chinese goods are in place now, and Trump says reciprocal ones are in the works.
It is a drive to bring back manufacturing, to protect our great jobs here.
Economists say tariffs support domestic producers by making U.S. businesses pay extra for imports. In light of new ones, Apple and Eli Lilly say they're investing billions of dollars in U.S. manufacturing. On the other hand, recent surveys show tariffs are causing concern about inflation.
Consumers are telling us that they're getting a bit more worried about the future.
Republican efforts to lower the deficit are making waves too.
And the new reality is less government, more efficiency, better return for the taxpayers.
Part of that is a new House resolution that calls for massive and controversial spending cuts. It also contains sweeping tax breaks that aren't sitting well with some fiscal hawks.
The deficit's going to go up.
Large-scale layoffs of federal workers are another part of the plan to reduce spending. Some analysts worry they could backfire.
Are literally some of the firings just in the federal government, which has 10 million workers, is that going to be enough to cause a recession?
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Well, I lost the only income that I have. So at this point, I applied for unemployment, and I've applied for social services like food stamps and Medicaid. I have no income, and I am a single mom with 2 kids. And now it's just devastating. Well, number one, she's a federal worker herself. So if that's the case, then she shouldn't be getting paid. Federal employees, we're real people with real families. We work. If we didn't work, the American public would see that because the government wouldn't be moving. And, we dedicate our lives, our career, our knowledge to serving the American people. I think that, with the upcoming rifts and probably furlough, it's going to be felt by everyone. I got an email on a Saturday, which is my regular scheduled day off, and it just said, read this immediately. And the body of the email said, read the attachments. Thank you for your service. And then in the actual letter of termination, it said that I was being let go because I had poor performance. But I've worked for the government for almost 10 years. I've never had a negative appraisal, no corrective actions, never been on a performance plan. And I had 66 days left to my probationary period. Yes, in my case, I do believe it was a lie. I have documentation that shows that I wasn't in any way a poor performer. I guess for me, I would just like to say that it goes against everything that they're saying or that they did say. They don't want people on government handouts. Well, you're forcing our hands. And with the uncertainty of that, with budget cuts to those programs, what happens to American people? I mean, this is people from all parties. So it affects everyone.